Speaker, the Premier said that he'd lower hydro bills by 12% as well, and of course we all know that that hasn't happened. I quote, he said he was going to do that without shady accounting tricks. The FAO report, however, Speaker, says that hydro's gone up every year since this Premier has been in office, including during the pandemic. The FAO says, and I quote, the government does not intend to lower electricity bills by 12% from 2018 levels. Despite spending billions and billions of dollars, the government continues to increase the price of electricity in this province each and every year. So my question is, why did this Premier outright break his promise to reduce electricity rates for the people of Ontario by 12%?
From the House Leader.
Again, thank you, Mr. Speaker. What the FAO did say was that the price of electricity was coming down for the people of the province of Ontario. What he also highlighted, Mr. Speaker, was that the contracts that we had to take over, that we had to assume, supported every step of the way by the Leader of the Opposition. These high price for electricity, for power that we didn't need, that we could not afford. Again, Mr. Speaker, all in this attempt at reducing greenhouse gas emissions, when we knew that the reason we had the cleanest electricity sector in North America was because of the hard-working men and women who work in our nuclear sector, Mr. Speaker. That is what happened. That is why we were able to bring that down. And because of the hard work of our government back in the early 2000s, Harris and Eves, to eliminate coal-fired generation, Mr. Speaker, to eliminate coal-fired generation. That is what's helped us on greenhouse gas emissions. And now, all of a sudden, the NDP and the Liberals care about people's pocketbooks. Give me a break, Mr. Speaker.
Order. And the final supplementary.
Oh, boy. Speaker, this member needs to take a history lesson or two. But nonetheless, I think we all saw first day back in the legislature, last session of this term, and the gimmicks and promises are rolling ahead like they did before the last election. Unfortunately, the people of Ontario are still suffering. In fact, one of the promises that this Premier actually kept was one that is making the cost of rent for people skyrocket in Ontario. He said he would end rent controls in 2018, and boy, did he do that. Now, renters are facing rent increases of up to 25%. Can you believe that? 25%. Last week, a study showed that the average rent for a one-bedroom apartment in the province of Ontario in various cities was skyrocketing. In Hamilton, you had to earn $70,000 a year to afford a one-bedroom apartment. In Ottawa, $73,000 a year to afford a one-bedroom apartment. In Toronto, $90,000. That's more than 2 to 3 times the average wage of a minimum wage worker. So, what is this Premier going to do to undo the damage of the one promise that he did keep and address the crisis of unaffordable rents in our province?
And, Mr. Speaker, we're seeing across the province of Ontario for the first time in decades, more rental housing being built, Mr. Speaker. We're seeing that because we are taking action to ensure that we can bring housing online much more quickly, Mr. Speaker. But look again at affordability. We're seeing auto insurance rates come down in the province of Ontario, not because of the stretch goals that the Leader of the Opposition wanted, but because of the policies of this government. We're seeing a reduction in taxes for the people of the province of Ontario, more money in their pocket. We've eliminated tolls. The only two parties to put tolls have been the NDP and the Liberals, Mr. Speaker. We're removing them and putting more money back in the pockets of the people of Ontario, Mr. Speaker. We're reducing red tape and regulation, Mr. Speaker, so that businesses can thrive in the province of Ontario. And we're seeing jobs come back. The Minister of Economic Development and Trade, Mr. Speaker, is bringing back jobs through the auto sector. The economy is starting to boom again, Mr. Speaker, and it's because of the policies of this government, despite the fact that they vote against everything and work so closely with the Liberals to destroy this economy. We came into power and made sure that they couldn't.
The next question. Stop the clock. Please start the clock. Next question, the member for Ottawa Centre.
Thanks, Speaker. Like others have done today, I want to begin my question, which is to the Premier, by acknowledging what our city in Ottawa has had to live through. An occupation that's lasted 3 weeks, that at one point involved over 500 vehicles, Speaker. And I have to admit through you, it's been tough for me to realize why my city became a target. A target of sabotage attempts in apartment buildings, including arson attempts, the locking of doors, the shutting off of water and electricity systems, of constant blaring of truck and car horns, and harassment of people walking in the street, verbal and physical, for wearing masks. Speaker, I ask the Premier, why did this happen? Having talked to convoy participants myself and so many residents, I believe many people who are part of this movement were taken advantage of by extremists who convinced them that the source of their problems involved harassing Ottawa residents. And what I believe, Speaker, is hate and division grows when people feel unheard. Our city's pleas for help went unheeded by a response from this government for 14 days.
Question.
As those 14 days elapsed, that hate grew. So my question through you, Speaker, to the Premier, why did it take you so long to happen? Why did you let this hate grow?
I remind the members to make their comments through the chair. To reply, on behalf of the government, the member for the Solicitor General, rather.
Thank you, Speaker. There is no doubt that the City of Ottawa, the people of Ottawa, have experienced a very challenging 3 weeks. However, the assertion of the member opposite to suggest that there was no involvement or engagement from the provincial government, from provincial resources, is categorically false. From the beginning, actually before the protests even appeared in Ontario, we were having, through the OPP, through the RCMP, conversations with police chiefs of jurisdiction to ensure that all information, all intelligence was shared so that people could prepare. Now, if the member opposite is suggesting that there needed to be a role where we directed police, I respectfully decline that. Our job is to ensure that the police have the resources that they need to effectively do their job. And the fact that we had an operation that, again, came from the City of Ottawa, came from the RCMP, came from the OPP, had cooperation with police services from across Ontario, and in fact...
Thank you. Thank you. The supplementary question.
Thanks, Speaker. Speaker, I find that to be a really tiresome answer. We've had to, in this parliamentary session, talk about this government's relationship to people like Faith Goldie and Charles McVitie. And let's add to the list. What about Pat King? What about DJ Dichter? What about people who've made their life's work hating on our Jewish neighbours, our Muslim neighbours, our queer, transgender, and non-binary neighbours? Where has your repudiation of them been in 14 days?
Order.
I want to ask that question on behalf of small businesses and workers. Workers like Liv. Liv works at a coffee shop just a stone's throw away from Parliament, Speaker. There were anti-mask hate folks that came into her workplace, demanded she take off her mask, and wouldn't leave until they were escorted to leave, and they hung around outside the door after, Speaker, trapping the workers inside the building. That's how toxic it was within the first day of this protest.
Question.
Security officials told us this was coming. Will this government today, with us, as an entire legislature, commit to condemning this hate, working to deprogram it, rebuilding, healing our communities? That's what we need today, not words.
Members will please take their seats. To respond, the Solicitor General.
You know, Speaker, our government has consistently condemned hate, wherever it comes from and to whomever it is directed. But I want people to understand that in the City of Ottawa, in Windsor, in Niagara, we had coordination, we had participation. There is opportunities for us to learn from those and see how well coordinated police can work together. But to suggest in any way that this is somehow directed by a government, by individuals within government, I think really is beneath the member opposite. We did what we needed to do. We gave the police services the resources they needed through the emergency measures. We have pulled CVORs to ensure that individuals who are participating in these illegal operations were dealt with and dealt with quickly. So we'll continue to work with our police partners, but I want to underline and remind the member that this was an illegal operation that was dealt with appropriately.
Thank you. Next, the member for Peterborough-Kawartha.
Thank you, Speaker. My question is for the Minister of Economic Development, Job Creation and Trade. Ontario's automotive sector and the nearly 100,000 people directly employed by it are critical to Ontario's economy. Our auto sector is currently undergoing a transformational shift towards the production